Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel Maverick's Arcade. My name is Chuck, and today we're going to talk about the initial planning for your arcade. However, before we start that, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you guys for subscribing. We've hit over 500 subscribers. Now, to be honest, I did not think we would hit 100 in a year. 100 was my goal so I could get a custom URL. But anyway, we have hit over 500 subscribers, and again, I just wanted to thank you guys for subscribing. I'm hoping my videos are either helping you make improvements to your existing arcade, or maybe giving you the motivation to consider building your own. So in this video, we're going to talk about 6 different steps to consider with your arcade. Now, you may be considering downloading pre-made plans from the internet. There are plenty of sites out there that offer schematics and blueprints of how to build your own arcade. Now, the steps we're covering here will be relevant whether you're custom building your own arcade or downloading plans. So let's get right to it. The first step that we want to consider, obviously, is how much space do you have to work with? Are you putting this in your basement? Would this be in your family room? How much space do you really have to work with? You don't want to put a monstrosity thing in a small apartment. So consider the height, how tall you can make it, and how wide you can make it, and even how deep you can make your arcade. Another consideration is how many players do you want to support? Do you want to have a one-player arcade machine? Do you want to have 2 players, or do you want to support games like Ninja Turtles or The Simpsons and so forth that had, 4-player support? That's going to be a big determining factor on how large your arcade will need to be. In my case, I wanted it to be large enough for 2 players to play, mostly for the fighting games. So what I did is I just took my width, gave myself a little bit of elbow room, doubled that, and then made sure that my arcade would be at least that wide to get that initial measurement. Also, what I wanted to make sure was that it was tall enough for me to be eye level. So I did some initial measurements and, kind of stood myself up against a wall and said, okay, if my hands were here, would they be comfortable? That sort of deal. So make sure to consider that. And then next big factor that we want to consider is what components are we going to use? Are we going to use a CRT screen? Are we going to use a flat screen? What kind of controls are you going to want to have? Are you going to have flight stick in the middle for games like Tron? Are you going to have analog joysticks? How many buttons you want to have? Now, normally for players 1 and 2, you want to have at least 6 play buttons, and obviously a start and a coin button. So those kind of considerations you definitely need to factor in there. The next thing that we really want to consider is mobility. Now, obviously, if you've been to a classic arcade, you know those games are not very mobile. Usually they have to bring in a jack or something to lift those things up, get them onto a dolly and move them around, and it's usually like a refrigerator dolly to move those things. Now, when I was planning mine, I thought, I live in a townhouse, and I know one day I'm going to move into a very large house and have it in an actual man cave. So I designed mine with 3.5-inch casters on the bottom so I can roll that thing around. Plus, if I want to clean or vacuum around it, I can just roll the whole thing out of the way, vacuum, and then roll it right back. So I would definitely consider whether or not you want to have casters on your arcade. Now, in my case, it was also great because when I was building it, I had some LEDs. So now I actually have ground effects underneath the arcade that you can see because the casters give a 3-inch clearance from the carpet. So definitely consider the casters whether or not you want to do that. Also, with my arcade, I designed it so it's only 2 feet deep. So, and it's about 6 foot 2 inches tall. So the entire thing can roll in and out of a standard doorway. I've had friends when they build their arcades that if they want to move them, they either need a lot of friends to help pick them up and move them around, or if they're moving it to a different house or location, they have to take apart the machine, move it, and then put it all back together again. Mine, luckily, with the materials that I chose to build it out of and the fact that it's on casters and it'll fit through a doorway, when I do move one day, I'll just need another friend to help me lift it into the truck. Another thing that rolls right into, no pun intended, what materials to consider, the weight and the durability. Now, the materials, I actually heard from one of the subscribers that they build their entire arcade machines out of acrylic. Now, that's hella cool. I would love to see a clear arcade machine. That would just be amazing to see. The weight shouldn't be too bad on that, but obviously durability is going to suffer heavily there. You know, if somebody scratches it, it gets dinged, it'll crack a piece of acrylic. That could be bad. And also, depending on the thickness of the acrylic, it could become very heavy. I know a lot of people use MDF to build their arcade machines. A friend of mine did use MDF, and he says the thing weighs a ton. Now, the benefit is it's not going to just fall over on him. The downside is he doesn't have casters on it. If he tries to move it, it's going to be extremely heavy and need multiple people to try to move that thing around. Which, again, the MDF is the material and the weight. It's very heavy. Now, my arcade has mostly 2x3s, and it has 1/4-inch ply. It's sandy ply. And then the control panel and the base use 1/2-inch ply, or 3/4-inch ply, so that you get a little more durability. Actually, no, the control panel I replaced, so it's got a 1/2-inch ply and a 1/4-inch plexi. The base, though, is 3.5 or 3/4-inch ply, sandy ply. So my machine is pretty durable. I'm looking at it now off camera. It's pretty durable. It's just a big box. And in the next video, I will show you guys how I actually assembled that box and so forth. So make sure to consider those factors. Another thing that you want to consider is what skills do you currently have and what skills are you missing? What are you willing to learn? What kind of things do you not know now that you can learn by messing with this project? For example, when I was first going up to do this, I had one of the subscribers mentioned he thought I was like an expert at woodworking. I assure you this is not true. The last thing before this project that I worked on was in 6th grade shop class in middle school, and it was a coat hanger with a little mirror in it. And I think in that class we got to learn how to use a router. It was an ugly looking thing. Gave it to my dad. But that was the last time I did anything woodworking at all. So when I was first considering this project, building an arcade, after I saw a friend of a friend have one, I was like, that's really cool. I want to build myself an arcade. And I thought, oh my God, I know the electronics. I'm in IT. I know all the computer stuff. At least I thought I did. I learned a lot along the way. I was like, what the hell am I going to do about this cabinet? I don't know how to build anything. So I talked to my cousin who builds furniture for a living, wooden furniture for a living. I was like, he'd be great at it. But he's a little far away. His time's really busy. That wasn't working out. So I talked to another friend of mine, Jeff. He's a contractor. He builds all kinds of gorgeous things and does contract work in people's houses. Again, same problem. He's very, very busy man, and I am very, very impatient when there's a project that I want to do. So I said, fuck it. I'll give it a shot. I'm going to try it myself. And originally, I decided to model this arcade in the free software from Google called Sketchup. It's a 3D software for rendering. I figured, hell, I'll make the thing in there, do my measurements in there, and see if everything looks correct. And if I'm confident that it's okay, I'll go ahead and start that. Now, what was also a benefit of this is I was able to render it into a 3D animation and post it to my Facebook page and have my friends give me some feedback and some advice. And it was funny because one of my friends told me that the way I had the supports in the machine were the supports were down and then the side parts were just kind of like attached. And he's like, that's not actually giving any support to the upper platform. So I rearranged the way that I had the wood pieced together to make it more solid. The other benefit was I realized very quickly some of the things that I had sized out would not work with the pieces of wood. So I definitely recommend, if you have any talent at all with 3D rendering, SketchUp is really easy to use, and to give it a shot. Even if you don't know 3D modeling, you could figure it out. I hadn't had much experience with it beforehand, but I was able to figure out the software pretty easily. And again, that's called SketchUp. It's free. It's from Google. Check it out. But let me show you that real quick. Let me show you what that looked like. So, right here, let me get rid of the text. Deep. So, this is what I originally had planned to build. Now, you can see here in the front, I originally was going to do a plexiglass cabinet. Or the rest of it was be hardwood, but the door would be plexi, so you could see inside. And inside there, I was going to have consoles like the PlayStation 3, the Wii, and things like that. But then I quickly realized I don't want an entertainment center. I want this thing to scream arcade, not entertainment center. So when I was building this thing, I did away with that drawer. I said, fuck it, I don't need that. And then over here on the side, this was for my subwoofer. I have another video about the Logitech, hacking the Logitech speakers and taking them all apart and stuff for the arcade. What's funny is you can see in my original plan, I was going to use a 32-inch screen. And that's right here. And this is a screenshot because I had tried to use Maximus Arcade, which is software that is no longer being produced. I found a couple of bugs with it with LED that will never be fixed, so I abandoned that software, and that's when I found Launchbox, which, I love, and I'll do a review on that soon. I know some of you guys have Hyperspin. That is a very pretty looking software, but it seemed a little busy to me, so I went with Launchbox. But originally, as you can see, if you've seen any of my other videos, you've seen my screen actually is mounted on the outside of the case. Now, originally when I was planning it, I was thinking it was going to be inside of a bezel woodwork. The reason why I also recommend using SketchUp like this is because I abandoned that. And the reason why I did is I realized if the flat screen goes bad, I'll need to replace it with a flat screen, and I may not get the exact same measurements. But if I mount it on the outside of the case, then as long as the width and the height of the screen are similar, which is easy to find, I can mount a new screen on there and not have to do any other major adjustments. So that's the reason why there's a change there. The next thing that changed during the process of building my arcade, as you can see, my original plan was to just drill like an oval in the front facade of the case and shove the speakers in there intact. But as I was getting ready to build, I said, let me see what it's like to take the speaker apart. Maybe I can hide them inside and just have the controls for the volume and everything protruding out. So that is one thing that is definitely different about the case from the planning stage to the end result. But let's go ahead and let this animation step through a little bit. And you can see also I kind of teased with the marquee. I didn't show what my final marquee was going to be. So then we're going to zoom in on the controls. Now, I love things being symmetrical. I generally want everything to be as symmetrical as possible. However, before I built my full arcade, I built just a test control panel. It was just a box that would only have this control panel portion. And I'm really glad I did that before I started building the full-size arcade. And the reason why is, like I said, I love symmetry. However, having a spinner right behind a trackball is a very bad idea. And the reason why is, let's say you're playing Golden Tee. If you ever see anybody in a bar play Golden Tee, what they do is they kind of back up, they take their hand and they go boom as fast as they can across this trackball. One, it's damaging to the trackball, but two, in my case, they're either going to smash the back plane or the back panel of the display, but before they can do that, they're going to jam their fingers right into the spinner, which is a very large metal object, which would definitely hurt or break a finger. So in my final plan, or in my final deployment, my spinner is actually over here by player one. So that is a difference that this planning phase and everything and doing the little test box helped me realize. So again, while I like symmetry, make sure to also consider how people will use the different devices on your arcade to make sure to place things in proper places. So as we let the animation play, you're going to get to see it's going to go around the backside and it's going to kind of break apart the arcade. This is what I was originally planning. Again, having no woodworking experience, I was just guessing. And as you can see, you got to make sure to plan for your casters. Because of if you design your arcade and you measure everything out without planning for that 3.5-inch lift from 3.5-inch casters, things are going to be higher than you expected when you put those wheels on. So anyway, continuing on, as we go to the back side here, what my original plan was is, as you can see on the back here, it has pegboard. And the reason why I was thinking that would vent some heat was part of my original plan. And then as you circle around, you can see I have a network jack right here because I thought that's how I was going to connect it in. But instead, inside my arcade now, I have a wireless adapter. So I did not need that jack. It's one less connection that I'll actually have to make. So the only thing that actually protrudes out of the case right now is the power cord. So as we circle around, you can also see what this hole here was going to I intended that hole to be was for a dryer vent to go directly off the back of the computer case fan port, so it would blast the air out of the hole. Instead, what I did is I have a hole here and a hole over here. And the hole down here, I have two computer fans, and one pulls air in from the bottom, and this top fan pushes the air out to kind of circulate the air throughout the case, and it seems to be perfectly fine for cooling. And then again, this hole on the side is for the subwoofer that came with the Logitech 2.1. Now it's going to fly by around again, and then it's going to start breaking apart the pieces so we can see inside. So what I was saying before was when I originally designed it, these pieces weren't on top of these supports. They were just connected from here to here, which means that board had no support in the arcade design. So as you keep going around, this would be the little stand for the shelf, but I ended up not doing that. So this is just a big hole. And then on the back here, the screen was originally inside. Now the back panel does come off, but it's only for the wires going between the bottom section and the top section and the marquee. Otherwise, the cords poke through and the screen just mounts flat against that case. And again, I am going to have a video after this showing how I assembled the case. But that will be coming in the future. There's my subwoofer just sitting there. Now in mine, it's actually mounted all around. But that is what I was doing during my design phase. So other things that you're going to need to consider is, are you going to have a marquee and are you going to have it light up? And again, this was just kind of showing how the buttons were underneath. But anyway, so that is that screen. So the plan it out, figure out what you want to do. One thing that was great is, as you can see, I was originally only planning for 2 players. However, as I was building it, I realized, hey, if I get some of the control pads, which is what I was originally using to test the emulator software, was just some game pads, Logitech game pads. I realized I was like, I could drill holes in either side. And right now I have PS2 or PS3 style joysticks and Super Nintendo style joysticks that both go into the sides of the arcade through a little hole, along with where the light guns go in. And they just plug into USB hubs inside the computer case, so that when I'm playing games in front of me, I can have player 1, I can have player 2, and they have arcade controls. But then players 3 and 4 can use game pads. So I'm not having to give up the real estate in my floor, or I'm not having to make up space on the size of my arcade, because I'm only having to support 2 players. But if I do have a 3 or 4 player game, they can use the 3rd and 4th player can use game pads. So I'm still able to support 4 players without having to have a monstrous size arcade. The other factors that you want to consider is, again, are you going to have a marquee? Is it going to be lit up? Are you going to have holes set up for like pinball, things like that are also going to be, you want to figure out all those things first. What is it you're going to want your arcade to do? And then you'll know exactly what kind of parts you need to buy. So plan it out first, then decide what you want to buy. Another thing to factor in that we didn't cover was, what kind of PC are you going to need? Are you going to be running old emulator software just like MAME? Are you going to want to do PS2 emulation or PS1 emulation or GameCube, N64? Those are going to require a little bit more powerful computer. So all of those considerations you need to factor in when you're designing your plans. If you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. But again, this just kind of gets your brain going. If you feel like you may not be able to do this, I guarantee you, if I can make an arcade machine, you can. It's not nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. It's time consuming, it's tedious, but it's actually very doable. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, stay tuned for my next video. Thanks again for watching. Hey guys, thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click like below. If you have any questions or comments, you may comment below or email mavericksarcade@gmail.com. Also, we are now streaming on Twitch, and this is our URL, so it's www.twitch.tv/mavericksarcade. Please check us out. We'll be playing some old classic PS1, PS2 games and other games that I just generally didn't play much, so I'm going to need your help. If these are games that you know, please jump online. Make sure to tell me. And the way you can do that is either through the chat on Twitch, or we are now using Discord. So look on our main page. There's a URL for the Discord to join for that. And then you'll be able to join us in our live streams or when we're streaming on YouTube. That will allow us to share the chat on the screen and for you to communicate via voice over our show while we're recording. So please check it out. Looking forward to seeing you guys and actually getting to speak to you guys while we're doing our streams. Again, please consider subscribing, and thank you again for watching.